You guys have been absolutely blowing up my comments asking for school bathroom horror stories. For months now, I'll be honest. It took me forever to find 3 genuinely terrifying ones that actually happened. But after digging through countless submissions and verifying the details, I finally have 3 stories that will make you think twice about using school restrooms alone. Trust me, what you're about to hear will stick with you. Story 1, the 3rd floor bathroom. It was my sophomore year at Lincoln High. I had just transferred there mid-semester. Being the new kid sucked, but what made it worse was that I had the worst schedule possible: advanced chemistry right after lunch with Mrs. Rodriguez, who was notorious for not letting anyone leave for bathroom breaks once class started. The problem was the cafeteria food always hit me wrong. I desperately need to use the restroom about 20 minutes into her class. There were 3 main bathrooms in our building. First floor one by the cafeteria was always packed and disgusting. The 2nd floor bathroom near the gym constantly smelled like sweat and had broken stall doors. But the 3rd floor bathroom, that one was perfect. It was tucked away near the old art classrooms that weren't used anymore, so it was always empty and clean. I discovered it during my 2nd week. It became my go-to spot whenever I needed a quick escape from chemistry class. Before we continue, share with us where are you watching from, and if this story touched your heart, subscribe now, because tomorrow something truly powerful is coming your way. On this particular Tuesday in March, about 25 minutes into Mrs. Rodriguez's lecture about molecular structures, I raised my hand for a bathroom pass. She rolled her eyes but handed me the wooden hall pass, and I speed walked to my usual 3rd floor sanctuary. The hallways were completely empty since everyone was in class. My footsteps echoed against the old tile floors. I pushed open the heavy bathroom door and immediately noticed something was off. All the lights were on, which was weird because they were usually motion activated and the place was always empty. But what really caught my attention was the sound. There was water running in one of the sinks. I could hear what sounded like quiet sobbing coming from the last stall. I hesitated at the doorway, wondering if I should just leave and use a different bathroom, but I really needed to go. I figured maybe some kid was just having a rough day. I walked over to the first urinal, trying to mind my own business, but the crying got louder. It wasn't just sad crying, it sounded panicked. Desperate, like someone was in real trouble. "Hey, you okay in there?" I called out, but the sobbing immediately stopped. Complete silence. Even the water in the sink had stopped running, though I hadn't heard anyone turn it off. The sudden quiet was somehow more unsettling than the crying had been. I finished up quickly and was washing my hands when I heard a voice from the stall, but it wasn't normal talking. It was a whisper, so quiet I almost couldn't make out the words. "He's coming back. He always comes back during chemistry class." My blood went cold. Chemistry class. That was oddly specific. I turned toward the stall and noticed something that made my stomach drop. There were no feet visible under the stall door. If someone was sitting in there, I should be able to see their shoes, but there was nothing. "Who's coming back?" I whispered, but as soon as the words left my mouth, every single light in the bathroom started flickering rapidly. The fluorescent bulbs made this awful buzzing sound, and in the strobing light, I saw something that still haunts me. The reflection in the mirror above the sinks showed a figure standing behind me, but when I spun around, nobody was there. The stall door slowly creaked open by itself, revealing an empty toilet, but carved deep into the plastic wall were dozens of tally marks, and underneath them, scratched in shaky letters, "Mr. Peterson was here, 1987 to 2003. I ran out of that bathroom so fast I left skid marks on the tile floor. When I got back to chemistry class, I was pale and shaking. Mrs. Rodriguez asked if I was feeling all right. I just nodded and sat down. For class, I went straight to the school office and asked about Mr. Peterson. The secretary's face went white when I mentioned the name. Turns out, Mr. Peterson had been a janitor at Lincoln High for 16 years. In 2003, he was arrested for inappropriate conduct with students. Specifically, he'd been cornering kids in that exact 3rd floor bathroom during class periods when it was empty. Several students had reported him, but it took months before anyone believed them because he was considered a trusted staff member. The really disturbing part The secretary told me that before his arrest, multiple students had reported hearing crying and whispers in that bathroom, but administration had dismissed it as pranks or overactive imaginations. They had even had that bathroom renovated twice trying to fix plumbing issues that were causing strange sounds. I never used that bathroom again. In fact, I started holding it through chemistry class entirely. Sometimes I wonder if those sounds were from past victims or if Mr. Peterson himself somehow left something behind in that place. Either way, I still get chills thinking about those tally marks and that whispered warning. Third floor bathroom was eventually converted into a storage closet my senior year. Officially, they said it was due to low usage, but I think the administration knew something was wrong with that place all along. Story 2, the girls' locker room bathroom. He was a junior at Westfield Academy, and our school had this weird layout where the girls' locker room bathroom was separate from the main locker room. It was this tiny, two-stall bathroom tucked behind the gymnasium that you could only access through a narrow hallway. Most girls avoided it because it felt isolated and creepy, but I actually preferred it during my free period because it was always empty and quiet, perfect for touching up makeup. Just getting a moment of peace between classes. It was a Thursday afternoon in November. I had study hall 6th period, which basically meant free time since our study hall teacher, Mr. Williams, just sat at his desk grading papers and didn't care what we did as long as we stayed quiet. I'd been dealing with cramps all day, so I decided to head to my usual spot in the locker room bathroom to take some ibuprofen and maybe splash some cold water on my face. Telling this story took time, care, and a lot of heart. If it moved you in any way, please consider subscribing. It really means everything to us. Now, let's return to the journey. I grabbed the hall pass and made my way through the empty gymnasium toward the back hallway. The lights in the gym were off since no classes were using it, and my footsteps echoed weirdly in the large space. When I reached the bathroom, I noticed the door was slightly ajar, which was unusual because it had one of those heavy spring hinges that always pulled it shut. I pushed the door open and immediately heard the sound of running water, but it wasn't coming from the sinks. It sounded like it was coming from inside the walls, like water rushing through pipes. The overhead lights were flickering intermittently, casting weird shadows that made the small space feel even more cramped and uncomfortable. I went into the first stall and was digging through my backpack for the ibuprofen when I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow, deliberate footsteps that stopped right outside the bathroom door. I figured it was just another student, but then I heard something that made my skin crawl, the sound of fingernails slowly scratching against the wooden door. The scratching continued for what felt like forever, but nobody came in. I called out, "Hello." I got no response, just more scratching. I finished up quickly and went to wash my hands, but the water coming out of the faucet was ice cold and had this weird metallic smell to it. That's when I noticed something in the mirror that made my heart stop. There were words written in what looked like condensation on the glass, but the bathroom wasn't steamy. The letters were shaky and uneven, spelling out, "She's still here." I spun around to see if someone was behind me, but the bathroom was empty. When I looked back at the mirror, more words had appeared. Melissa never left. The scratching on the door had stopped, but now I could hear what sounded like muffled crying coming from the second stall, the one I hadn't checked. I slowly walked over and pushed open the stall door. It was empty, but carved into the metal wall were hundreds of small scratches forming letters. Help me repeat it over and over again. At the bottom, in larger letters, was carved MC 2019. The lights went out completely, plunging the bathroom into total darkness. In the pitch black, I heard a voice, young, female, desperate, whisper my name, Sarah. "Don't let them cover this up like they did with me." I fumbled for my phone's flashlight and ran out of that bathroom as fast as I could. When I got back to study hall, I was shaking so badly that Mr. Williams actually looked up from his papers and asked if I was okay. I just nodded and sat down, but I couldn't concentrate on anything for the rest of the period. That night, I did some research online about Westfield Academy and found a local news article from 2019 about a student named Melissa Chen who had died by suicide in the school. The article was vague about the details, but it mentioned that she had been struggling with bullying and that she was found in a school restroom the next day. I asked some of the older students about Melissa, and one senior told me the real story. Melissa had been relentlessly bullied by a group of girls who would corner her in that isolated locker room bathroom during free periods. They'd lock her in the stall and leave her there for hours. The administration knew about the bullying but didn't take it seriously until it was too late. After Melissa's death, the school claimed they were going to improve their anti-bullying policies, but according to the senior I talked to, they mostly just tried to keep the story quiet. They'd even had the bathroom renovated over the summer, supposedly to update the facilities, really to remove any evidence of what had been there. I never used that bathroom again, and I noticed that most other girls avoided it too, though none of them would say why. Sometimes during free periods, I'd see underclassmen heading toward that back hallway. I'd always find an excuse to warn them away or suggest they use a different bathroom. Really disturbing part is that the school still hasn't put up any kind of memorial for Melissa or even acknowledged what happened. It's like they're hoping everyone will just forget. But based on what I experienced that day, I don't think Melissa is ready to be forgotten. Story 3, the basement maintenance bathroom. He was 18 and in my senior year at Riverside High, when I got a part-time job as a student custodial assistant. It was perfect for me because I could work during my free periods and after school. Plus the pay was decent for a high school job. My supervisor, Jana, was this really cool older woman who treated me more like a co-worker than just some kid. And she taught me all the ins and outs of the building. The school was old, built in the 1960s, and had this maze-like basement level that most students never saw. Down there was where they kept all the cleaning supplies, the boiler room, old storage areas, and a small employee bathroom that was supposed to be just for maintenance staff. Jana had given me the key and told me I could use it whenever I needed to, since it was way cleaner than the student bathrooms upstairs. It was a Wednesday afternoon in February. I was down in the basement restocking toilet paper in the supply closet when nature called. The employee bathroom was just around the corner from where I was working, so I grabbed the key from my belt and headed over. When I unlocked the bathroom door, the first thing I noticed was that it felt way colder than the rest of the basement, which was already pretty chilly. My breath was actually visible like I was outside in winter. The single overhead light was working, but it was dimmer than usual, casting everything in this weird yellowish glow. I was about to use the toilet when I heard something that made me freeze, the sound of running water coming from the sink. But the faucet handles weren't turned on. The water was just flowing on its own. And when I looked closer, I could see that it wasn't clear water. It had this dark, rusty color to it, like old blood mixed with dirt. I reached over to turn off the faucet, but the handles wouldn't budge. The water kept flowing, and the sink was starting to overflow onto the floor. That's when I noticed something else. There were wet footprints on the tile leading from the sink to the far corner of the bathroom. But they weren't normal footprints. They looked small, like they belonged to a child. I followed the footprints with my eyes and saw that they led to a section of the wall where the paint was peeling badly. As I stared at the wall, I started to make out what looked like scratches in the plaster underneath the paint. Not random scratches, they formed letters, words, a message that became clearer the longer I looked. They put me down here. The temperature in the room dropped even more, and I could hear my own breathing getting faster and more panicked. That's when the light started flickering, and in the brief moments of darkness between flickers, I swear I could see the outline of a small figure standing in the corner where the footprints ended. The faucet suddenly shut off by itself, leaving the room in complete silence except for the sound of water dripping from the overflowing sink. In that silence, I heard something that made my blood turn to ice, a child's voice. Scared and alone, whispering, they said I fell down the stairs, but I didn't fall. Someone pushed me. The light went out completely, and in the darkness, I felt something brush against my leg. Something small and cold. I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, and when the light came on, I saw that more words had appeared on the wall. Scratched deeper than before. Tommy Martinez 3 or D grade. 1987, they lied. I ran out of that bathroom, and didn't stop running until I reached the main floor. Found Jana in the main office and tried to explain what had happened. But I was so shaken up that I wasn't making much sense. She took me to the counselor's office and made me sit down until I calmed down. When I finally managed to tell her the story coherently, her face went pale. Jonna had been working at Riverside for over 20 years, and she remembered Tommy Martinez. He was a third grader who had died in 1987 after allegedly falling down the basement stairs during a school field day. The official story was that he had wandered away from his class and somehow ended up in the basement, where he fell and hit his head. But Jonna told me that there had always been rumors among the staff that something wasn't right about Tommy's death. Some teachers had reported seeing older students bullying him earlier that day, and there were questions about how a third grader could have gotten into the locked basement area in the first place. The investigation was closed quickly, and the school administration discouraged anyone from talking about it. After Tommy's death, multiple staff members reported strange occurrences in the basement, cold spots, unexplained sounds, and that employee bathroom in particular seemed to have ongoing plumbing issues that no one could fix. The school had brought in several different contractors over the years, but the problems persisted. John arranged for me to work only on the upper floors for the rest of the school year. She also quietly shared Tommy's story with me because she said it was important that someone from the younger generation knew what really happened. According to her, the school had never properly investigated Tommy's death, and his family had been pressured to accept the official explanation. I graduated a few months later, but I still think about Tommy sometimes. I hope that wherever he is, he knows that at least some people remember him and believe that he deserved better. The basement bathroom was eventually sealed off permanently my senior year, officially due to persistent maintenance issues, but I think we all knew the real reason. Coming up to more unforgettable stories await you if this one stirred something inside you. Don't let the next ones pass you by. Click to watch, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a moment with us.